Welcome to the Breath of Life podcast. I'm Yulia. Here, we explore the world and our place in it through the lens of interconnectedness. If we could feel part of the living world, not just intellectually, but in our bones, if our breath could sync with the larger rhythm of life, how would that change the way we live, work, and make decisions? Join me for conversations with people who live and work from that place.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Breath of Life podcast. And today I'm talking with Kath Almond. Kath just told me that there is a story behind this artistic name, so maybe we'll get to hear it. And we're going to talk about beings that we both love, and it's sharing this connection with those beings, which are trees, that really attracted me to Kath's Substack and writing. So that's what we are going to explore, is beautiful beings that the trees are. Hi, Kath, and thank you for being here. And you call yourself an earth influencer and a syntropic storyteller. Can you share a little bit more about those names and also how you got to where you are today?
Hi, Yulia. Thank you so much for having me on your amazing podcast. And I'm so excited for our conversation with trees today. It's really an honor for me to be here and see what emerges from within us. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. And yes, my name is Kath Almond. That's my artist name and actually also my married name. So I'm married to a Kiwi, to a New Zealander, and his last name is Almond. And I couldn't have asked for a better name gift with my love for trees and my love for the rest of nature and Mother Earth. And so, I'm carrying this name with a lot of excitement and also pride that it has been given to me. Yes, you said very well, right, that I don't want to necessarily say I identify as an Earth influencer, but this is kind of like if you want to call it, job title that I have taken on for myself. And it's coming from a very successful and long-standing career as a marketing professional back when I was still employed in modernity. A few years back, I believe it was 2018, 2019, woke up to the planetary collapse and was starting to questioning my involvement in it all and what I'm actually doing with my life. And there was a lot of crying in the bush in Aotearoa, New Zealand at that time. And I basically quit my job after a few years and became a full-time climate activist to only understand that it's also not the right story I want to tell. As a climate activist, I was constantly fighting against the system, against the government, and not really activating or inspiring other members of the community. I started to go deep, questioning myself what I actually stand for. And I, learned from my heart, basically, that I'm here to speak for my love of nature, for Mother Earth and all life. I stepped out of the climate activism movement and focused on telling stories for my love for the earth. And this is where the name Earth Influencer basically came from. So imagine it's pretty much what brand influencer do in modernity, but I'm not promoting a brand or anything. I'm speaking for the earth as best as I can. Syntropic storytelling is basically the practice I'm doing as an earth influencer. I think that's all I want to share.
I ask you a little bit more about syntropic storytelling and maybe the meaning of the word syntropic. I wanted to say that the story that you described also resonates. A while ago, I spent 6 years working for Greenpeace. I was immersed into like what was happening. At that point, I was doing fundraising, and one of very few projects that was successful and was really appealing to people was about planting trees and restoring forests. And like, it was a message at that time it stayed with me. And I resonate very much with this approach rather than fighting. Why don't we invite everyone, and why don't we connect through love?
Yes, that's the way to go. Thank you. Thank you for relating and resonating.
And what is syntropic storytelling? Can you tell a bit more?
I can try as best as I understand the practice. I call it a metaphysical archetype practice. And while this sounds maybe a bit abstract, at the core of it all is to experience life fully and telling the stories from those experiences with the rest of nature, but also with ourselves, right? Because I guess I start to understand that at the heart of our poly crisis or meta crisis, as however you want to call it, is actually a huge disconnect, a huge separation of us humans from all life, our own life, our inner ecology, but also life with the connections with our Umwelt, the relationships with our Umwelt, which is a beautiful German word for the immediate environment, but also with all life, with rest of nature, right? There's like a huge separation in our relationality. With my experience in climate activism, I saw immediately and viscerally, I guess is the right word, I experienced how being energetically opposed or fighting against something does not bring people together. It separates us, it divides us more than anything, right? And I couldn't give any of my energy to that narrative anymore because I could feel in my heart that it doesn't bring us to the togetherness we actually need, to that coming together to be, I guess, good stewards of Mother Earth and of all life, and understand from our heart and with all senses that we belong here. And it's not one institution or one party or one individual out there that can overcome this crisis. It needs to be all of us in togetherness. And so I related to the stories and the narrative of climate activism as highly entropic. And entropy, I understand entropy as energy depleting, exhaustion. That's also how I experience it in my own body when I'm not aligned with all life and my feminine cycle, for instance. And syntropy is the opposite, right? The other side of the polarities to entropy. I have learned to understand syntropy as life-giving, as regenerating force, and probably the essence of all life. And I don't want to say we can live all the time only in syntropy. I think that that's not possible. It always needs both. The plus and the minus, the polarities, for life to, I guess, emerge from within entropy and syntropy. And it is a constant dance of energies for me, where I believe that language is a very, very important part of it. Not only the language of our communication, but also how I speak to myself. I don't know if any life is like my life, but there is, in my inner ecology, there is constant noise. There are always voices. Like I tell myself so many stories. Most of them I'm probably not even aware of, but bringing those stories into consciousness and understanding if I speak in low frequency or high frequency to myself, first of all, already start changing so many relationships, not only with myself, but I guess by nature, because we are all interconnected and in a relationship with one another, with anyone and all life around me. And so at its heart, syntropic storytelling is about telling life and love-giving stories to shift the narrative we live in into a higher frequency, into heartwarming, fully sensed energies. Yeah, thank you for that.
So at the heart of your stories, at least the ones that I've read on Substack, are trees, various trees. Can you talk a little bit about how they are featured in those stories?
I can try. I think I need to say that I'm a highly intuitive person, and there's no rational reasoning behind my stories with trees. If more than anything, it is love. It is my love for trees. Trees are my friends. They are giving so much. We probably many people are not even aware of, to contribute to our life, and a lot of comfort actually in being with trees. And I've been contemplating this, I guess, why trees question a lot. And there's one element that is not easy for me to digest necessarily. I mean, it is true and it is also sad at the same time. I believe I trust trees more than humans. My relationships with trees have always been very intimate. I can say this in hindsight now. I wasn't aware of this when I was a child or during my teens. And I guess in one way, writing with trees is my way of giving back, because I have this intuition of being able to connect with them and receive their frequencies, their vibrancies, their messages. And I think the relationship I'm having with trees is very special. I know of other people who have those special relationships, and it's so beautiful to be with you today. I feel called to speak from those relationships with them. Yeah. Trees have always been themselves and true to their nature in my presence. I have never felt unsafe or free to be me in the presence of a tree, which I wish to have with all of my humans relations as well, but it's not the reality at this moment. And so, yeah, they give me a lot of life and a lot of love, a lot of things to contemplate for sure. The experiences have with the trees I'm writing this year in the series on Substack is maybe, it's maybe a bit deeper than, I guess, that love and what I just shared. So about 3 years ago, I moved back to Germany, to my homeland here in Märkisch Oderland, east of Berlin. And I learned that this has also been the land of my ancestors while I was here, which invoked something in me. I really wanted to connect with the land on a deeper level, and the trees were just the most, a heart chosen, intuitive decision I could connect with and commune with. Because they have been here not only all my life, but even longer than that, at least most of them. And so for this story series, I intentionally commune with trees I have a connection with, who are my friends in my Umwelt around me.
Yeah, trees also have been just beings with whom I was able to connect deeper, because somehow I had more trust for them than for human beings. And in one conversation about trust with a few friends, I found myself saying that for someone who doesn't have a lot of trust in people, I starting to grow the trust is best with trees or plants that have much more trust to offer and that really receive us the way we are.
Thank you, Yulia. And I think I want to add one more thing, actually, that only recently becomes more more palpable is probably the right word for me, as in trees are connected to the lands, and of course plants as well, but trees are connected to the lands. I want to say like almost no other beings, because they are rooted here. And so it takes, I feel, so much life force to be able to stay rooted no matter what happens in your Umwelt. As an I myself consider myself as an escape artist. I can leave scenes and no one knows where she's gone. To some degree, it's a strength, but on another level, I'm also learning from trees what it actually means to be rooted and to be place-based and to stay where you are. And so on, I guess on another level, that's also one of my learning challenges or learning edges, being back to my homeland after many years abroad.
And something that came to mind, that in kind of my worldview, where my love for trees also comes from, is because we have so many trees in us, literally, like the bronchial tree, and many more, actually, the nervous system tree and the circulatory system. So we are carrying trees in us. And some people say that it's just the propensity of the cells to branch out. But my story, my Syntropic story is that it's the love of trees that, because they have much more intelligence. They've been here much longer than we have. And this is how they pass those gifts of intelligence and love to us.
I love your story, Yulia, and I so deeply resonate. And also on I guess that level, I do understand trees as probably some of our oldest ancestors. Indeed, I myself haven't had grandparents, for instance, and I guess that's a very personal, I guess, life story, right? My grandparents either died way too early for me to meet them, or we didn't have a good relationship with one another. And in some of the trees I meet, I so find this, I guess, comfort and holding of grandparents as well, of ancestors who deeply feel that I care and who give that care back to me in a way. I'm thinking about the oak tree I visited for the last new moon. He's so funny. Anyway, there was a sense of grandparents and, I'm being held by a grandparent. And then in particular, I'm thinking about Tane Mahuta, who is this very ancient kauri tree in Te Tai Tokerau in the far north of Aotearoa, New Zealand. I was so humbled to be in his presence. He's at least 1,200 years old, and the wisdom and the stories, and I guess just the love I received, and he can tell, is just not from this world, but I do know it's from this world. We share the same planet.
So
We have the same home.
how do you connect with trees? So the way that you hear what the trees
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's not an easy question to answer because, as I said earlier, like a lot is probably based on my intuition. I'm not like, for instance, consciously choose which tree I visit next and share a story with. Sometimes it is a state of my inner ecology that I, be like, oh my God, I need to see the oak. Or sometimes it is a curiosity, like in the case with when I was visiting the hazel. But I think when I visit a tree, first of all, I need to clear myself from a lot of inner clutter and stories I'm telling myself, especially stories like, oh my God, what do other people say when they see me communing with their trees? All these, I guess, limiting stories I'm telling myself. And I need to be able to clear my system and to my energy field out of from these stories. And then it is just being with a tree. Sometimes I stand with them, sometimes I sit with them. and listening to all that is happening. And when I say listening, I guess what I probably mean is trying to activate all my senses to be able to receive. That is smelling, hearing, seeing, intuiting, and yeah, having myself and my heart so wide open that I can receive whatever wants to emerge. And they do not necessarily speak in words with me, right? That's why I also think language is so powerful, not just human to human or self-talk, but also language that is wordless, signals, frequencies, energies we receive all the time. It's opening up all the senses to receive. And it is not always immediately that I receive messages from the trees. Sometimes I carry the experience with me, and a few hours later or a day later, I receive the so-called download. And I'm in this conversation, I'm in communion when I'm present, but also afterwards, and sometimes even before that. And so, of course, it is a physical connection, but it is so much more like an invisible connection of communion, of communication, and giving and receiving, I suppose. Yeah. I sometimes sing to trees. I love singing to trees. They love it. Sometimes I cry. Sometimes, yeah, it's not always words, but there's language happening.
Yeah. I somehow found out recently how, I wouldn't say liberating it is to talk to trees in my own language, and just to share with the tree anything that comes to mind. And it's liberating because it's very different from an experience where you talk to a human, where you have to filter a lot, even if the human is there to hold space for you, and even if it's someone very close, still I always stay very mindful of what it is I'm sharing and how much I want to spill of my stuff on other people who are also overwhelmed. And with trees, it was just so easy, and it was somehow received and transformed, so accepting, and so a really beautiful practice for me. Well, I don't know what you call it, but
Relationship.
yeah.
Yes, it resonates so much with me. Can I just
Yeah,
chime
sure.
in? Thank you, Yulia. Um, it is because how I relate with trees, or how I experience trees when I'm in presence with them, is there's there's beauty and purity in a way in this relationship, and because there's like no masking or no hiding, no posturing. And I experience sometimes with humans, even though we try so hard to not put ourselves on other people, right? And we show up with the best intentions, but my relationship with trees have another quality. There's clarity and intimacy, like I do not have with many humans. Yes, thank you for invoking this in me. Mm.
Mhm. And I'm curious, how did this come to be? How did this relationship develop? Did you just find out one day that you're attracted to trees?
Thank you for asking. I think I can say thank you and give my gratitude to Tani Mahuta, the Kauri tree I mentioned earlier, because in his presence, it was the first time that I consciously experienced that I'm in dialogue with a tree. There was so much going on between the two of us that I could feel what it means and how it is to receive another living being in communion and intimacy. And yeah, that was, I suppose, in hindsight, I can say this initiation, even though I didn't know that at that time. And I started writing from my experience with him. And this is how it evolved in a way. At the end of last year, I mean, I'm crazy for stories. I love storytelling. I love receiving and living and listening to stories. They are what matters in my life. Even sometimes not right stories, so to say, right? Because I can understand that they are stories. And at the end of last year, I felt this urge of bringing together tree wisdom with the cosmic weather, basically, what is happening around the new moon in the universe or in our solar system, and bringing those two passions of mine, I want to say, into stories. And this is how I guess this storytelling with trees emerged. And then, as I said earlier, I truly, truly wanted to reconnect more fully and I guess more sensefully with the lands of my ancestors. And there are trees who have witnessed me my entire life. They witnessed me growing up and remembering when I fell off my bike or when I ran home crying or and I guess many other trees as well. I don't know. Did I went somewhere where I shouldn't go with this answer?
No, that's we don't have a specific place to arrive at. We're just enjoying the process.
Thank you.
The tree that you mentioned, is it a practice to come to this tree, or how did you
With meeting Tane Mahuta, that wasn't a practice whatsoever. I was traveling with my mom and the Northland of Aotearoa, New Zealand, before we went back to Germany. Of course, I wanted to visit this ancient kauri tree because of my love for trees, right? And so there was just a one moment in a lifetime, I guess, with the other trees that I'm writing with this year in particular. It is sort of a practice, but not necessarily a practice. It is more like tending a relationship and visiting the trees whenever I can and whenever I have the energy to go to visit them. Sometimes it's like I think I mentioned the oak story, the story I wrote with the oak. Um, before I visited the oak story, I I was in a very low energy mood. I was having a lot of self-doubts about my past and for continuing following my heart. And there was a lot of questioning and confusion in me. And as I said, intuition kind of like guided me to hop on my bike and go to see the oak tree, even though my relationship with the oak tree before that encounter was not necessarily like the closest relationship I have with the tree. The oak always appeared to me a bit aloof and a bit distant in a way. Sometimes I sat next to the oak, but most of the times I would pass by and give him a nod and like just, this acknowledgement. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm here, you're here, cool. And go to other trees. At this particular time, I don't know. I followed, I guess, my heart, my intuition, or some calling in me to go and see the oak and seek communion. Maybe because he is a symbol of strength and resilience. And I somehow knew he had answers for me, and being in his presence could help me with balancing, I guess, my energetics and my nervous system and my being.
Can you tell maybe another story or a couple of stories where trees are characters? Whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, thank you, Yulia. I think I would like to speak about the ash tree, because the ash tree, somehow there are no ash trees around in my immediate environment. but still the ash tree came into my mind to write with. And it was challenging because I didn't knew an ash tree. And I'm like, oh, okay, but how do I write a story with not being able to physically meet the tree? And as someone who wants to have a lot of things in control, I had kind of like a backup tree in my mind who actually lives around my neighborhood. But I wanted to not push it away because of some sort of, I guess, externalities or whatever. And yeah, I didn't want to dismiss the ash tree. So a couple of days I was traveling a bit further north, here in Germany. Like magic, I want to say, there was this grove of ash trees. There were some willows among those, and the ash trees were all relatively young. And I was just like, okay, I see. I guess we are writing a story together. However, in that story, if I remember right, there's not a single word that I have written. It was the ash tree who was speaking to me about their experience of life and climate change and biodiversity loss and how challenging it is to I guess, reproduce when you need several years of bearing fruits and seeds before you can continue life. And it was it was an experience I never had before because in that story, it wasn't all about me. I didn't matter actually, and I was just kind of like a conduit or a channel for the ash tree and their experience of life. And so yeah, it's a story I guess I wrote with my hands and my body, but it wasn't my story at all. Yeah, I guess that's the story I want to share about a very unexpected experience with a tree. The other one would be the elder tree, who basically taught me a lot of things about eros, basically this vast energy of love and erotics in nature. I didn't dare to go further down that route yet because it felt very foreign to me to write about erotics and I guess that kind of intimacy. But maybe it comes back one day. But that was extremely enlightening for me to receive the elder tree wisdom.
Yeah. It's interesting what you're describing, how you just feel an urge or an intuition that you need to go to a tree and not necessarily knowing even where the tree is or how you will meet the tree. And when that started to emerge in my life, when I was connecting more with trees and plants, it felt a little bit like magic. And it felt a little bit like,
Mm-hmm.
in my childhood, where the magic was still there, and then there came disillusionment. Sorry, there is no magic in life. And in my Soviet life, everything was purely rational. And all of a sudden, this relationship, it just brings back this magic. And I realized that maybe all humans have it in them, this longing for magic and for interspecies relationships. Yeah.
I want to believe that too. Yes, thank you, Julia. I think what drives me every morning to get up for another day is this beauty of life. And yes, magic is a pretty beautiful word to describe this experience of being so intimately connected with all life. And yes, I can so relate. For the first years, I think the first 7 years of my life, I grew up in the GDR.
Mm-hmm.
The former communist Germany, or whatever it's been called, Eastern German. And as a child, there was awe and wonder and magic in my life to a certain degree because I was outside this window. I grew up in this house, and yeah, I grew up in the street, and I have beautiful memories of summer nights outside. And yeah, it feels very, and then it all gets distorted, I want to say, through, yeah, the human-made systems like the society we have created around ourselves takes us so, so far away from the beauty of life, from that magic. But I also want to believe it's in us, in every one of us. And for some, it's easier to reconnect with it. And for some, it's a bit harder, but it's there nevertheless. Yeah. To remember this interconnectedness is basically all that matters to me. We belong. We
Yeah.
we are part of nature. We are nature, and so we belong to this planet, like the trees and the birds and all the flying insects.
Actually, I wanted to ask you about any practical advice you might have for anyone to reconnect. But then there's something you said, and I'll do this later, but there is something you said about we belong. And someone shared with me this statistics where people were asked whether they love nature and whether they believe they are loved by nature. And interestingly, if I remember it correctly, it's like 2/3 of the people didn't believe that they are loved by nature, which is interesting. So I don't know if it's a protective mechanism, maybe, because when you know you have become so distant and that you have maybe contributed to what's going on, which to some extent we all somehow contributed and have contributed. But there is this distance that doesn't even allow to receive love, or maybe at some level, it's like, no, well, we don't belong and we're not worthy because what we learn in the society that you have to be worthy of love. And trees and nature, they're so generous and so forgiving, and the love is there all the time. And I think so many people who feel really lonely, that would be such a miracle to discover it and to receive it. And so it is a good segue into the question about any practical advice that you might have for connecting and also for receiving and for recovering the sense of belonging.
Thank you. Yeah. What comes up to me is just, yeah, I feel a lot of sadness when I listen to you sharing, I guess, those surveys results. Yeah. Because in the end of the day, that's all that matters, right? The love for life and being in reverence of this beautiful gift we have been given. And yeah, our own body is nature. And so I gotta sit with this. It makes me a bit sad. Okay, you were asking how it can be maybe a bit easier to reconnect with nature. I guess that's the question, right? Thank you. I think it doesn't need much, but just the willingness to, I guess, to be present, even if it is a house plant that is live, or a fly that finds their way into your kitchen, or probably not most people would love that, but it's, and it doesn't mean you have to accept the fly in the kitchen, right? But just being present with that fly in the kitchen and maybe helping it out, getting outside again, in instead of killing it, I suppose. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it is sort of simple to just be with a plant. You don't have to do a grand hiking tour to reconnect with nature, because nature is all around us and within us. And I this might maybe sound a bit silly, but that's the limiting stories I'm telling myself. Last week I had a cold. I was bedridden with a cold, and I actually thanked my B cells and my T cells and my natural killer cells for the job that they are doing to keeping our body safe, to keeping this, I guess, ecosystem we are safe and healthy. And maybe it's even easier to start with oneself. I'm deeply, deeply grateful for all my senses, that I'm having a healthy, fully functioning body as far as I know, that I can see, smell, taste, touch, hear, and yeah, having all my senses and experiencing them is probably what it is. And you can do this with trees, you can do this with birds, with any plant, outside the house with waters. Connecting with waters is like, wow, like next level. But also trees. I have many special relationship with trees, with bees, with birds, all of them. But I wanted to say birds. Yeah, allowing ourselves to sense and feel again. Um, even if it is a minute holding your face into the sun when the sun shines, or going out into the rain and experiencing the raindrops. And so it is almost like an activation of our whole sensory body, to feel that we belong.
That's
Mm.
what actually happened to me today. This morning, I was biking home and rain started. And first, kind of on autopilot. I was like, annoyed, rain. And then, wait, wow, rain is fun. Look at how I can all of a sudden sense a lot of things in my whole body. And I just looked around and everything. The sky was gray, but the trees were bright. Receiving everything that is there for me right now was super beautiful.
It's very enlightening, isn't it?
Yeah. It's one of the things that has been really important to me. And some time ago, maybe a couple of years ago, I listened to a podcast with some herbalists. And they say, well, here's your tea, here's an infusion. What is it exactly? Well, it's how you commune with a plant, with an herb. You take this in, and at very many levels, including neurobiological, physiological levels, because our receptors, human receptors, they have evolved in response and co-evolved together with plants. And so every time now when I have my tea, I take this time as a communion with the plants that are in the tea. And also with, actually in the winter, last winter, I made tincture with pine needles,
Mm.
which somehow for me was such a powerful medicine in the winter. And pine is about getting through some stuckness, and it can be any respiratory disease, like getting cold, but also emotional, spiritual. It's getting things moving. Yeah. And now one of the things that I try to do when I establish a contact with a different plant is find a way to taste it.
Wow. Yes. That's being in relationship with a plant, right? With another living being. And for me, when I listen to you in the most beautiful way.
Well, we're at the end, so thank you very much. Kath, it
Thank
was
you.
super beautiful. I can feel so many things resonate with me. Where can people find out about what you do and maybe your offerings?
Thank you, Yulia, for asking. And yes, my time with you and the trees has also been so resonating and nourishing. I loved our conversation. And everyone can find me on earthinfluencers.org. This is also where the name of my Substack, also the name of my Instagram, but I'm not that often on Instagram, to be honest. So Substack is a place to be, and my website, earthinfluencers.org. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been a joy.
Yes, and I'm sure I will see you around on Substack, but maybe.
Yes, before we go back to New Zealand, I would so love to commune with a tree with you, since we are not such far away from each other. I would love that.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Breath of Life. It means a lot to me. If something in this conversation touched you, consider sharing it with someone and connecting in the process. Follow The Breath of Life for new episodes and join me on Substack, where I publish my weekly writings. The link is in the show notes. Till next time.